There is a problem, especially among youth, how to counter fear.
It is also about building relations. So I think that is what the most important aspect of any business is. Now that basically means that you are able to trace the product from the time it is being harvested till the time it is turned into what you are going to buy.
Especially those sort of things, they generate fear.
You know, when I joined the Navy, I was a non-swimmer. But I would say it's a surreal experience, honestly. Because when you are at 8,000-9,000 feet and you look down into the water, you see nothing but blue and a ship that is the size of a 25-paise coin.
Being in Navy, then going to NERAMAC, and then NHDC.
So it involves both a defensive role and an offensive role. One is of mine clearance and mine laying, and a lot of valuable lessons that would come in handy later.
If there is some weaver or master weaver or community of weavers or an entrepreneur who is working in this field, looking at you and trying to find out a guidance or a mentorship,
I think export is a very important aspect because Indian handlooms, like I mentioned earlier, it's a living heritage which he has with the market because he's got subsidized for the yarn. And the beauty of the whole thing is that he gets a transport subsidy also, which brings it to him at nil gate price.
So this 5 years, the next 5 years, what do you think what we are going to do or what we should be doing?
That's a very profound question actually. So it's a 12-week curriculum that will run and it will be a batch of 30 women. It will be a residential program. And at the end of it, once they finish the curriculum, they will have continuous hand-holding from the institute. Some people are attaching themselves back to weaving in terms of being entrepreneurs.
There is lack of information.
And once they start understanding it, then they realize that there is potential in this. So it's a two-way street in the sense that it's not just the weaver or the artisan who needs to understand GI.
नमस्कार, मेरा नाम रजत मिश्रा है। IID के इस पॉडकास्ट में आप सभी का स्वागत है। Before we start this, I want you to sit with a number, 35 lakhs. These are the numbers in India which are earning their livelihood through handloom. These are the people who live in different parts of India, in villages, in hills, in jungles, and their core focus is handloom. But when we talk about handlooms, we talk about heritage. We talk about this is something part of nostalgia. But yarn, but looms, these are not nostalgia. These are their livelihoods. And more importantly, there is something which we have to take care of. What about looms? How are they going to reach the yarns to these villages of Kutch, let's say hills of Chamoli, from a plant of Coimbatore, for example? This is not a nostalgia problem. This is a logistics problem. And this is where NHDC comes into play, National Handloom Development Corporation. And this is where our guest, Commodore Rajiv Ashok, who is the MD of NHDC, comes into play. Sir, welcome.
Thank you, Raja. Thank you very much.
Before we begin, I want to tell you about Commodore Rajiv Ashok. He doesn't come from textile. He comes from the sea. He has served around 31 years in Navy. He was a combat diver. He was a skydiving instructor. He commanded INS Ranvijay, INS Chamak, INS Ranvir. He was officer in charge in Gujarat. He was director of naval operations at Delhi. And also he was Commodore in charge of President's Fleet Review. He has vast experience in naval operations, Navy. When he retired, he joined NERAMAC, Northeastern Region Agriculture Marketing Corporation. So he was MD of NERAMAC, and then he came to NHDC, National Handloom Development Corporation. So you're most welcome. But before we come to textile, before we come to all of other things, I want to go inside water, maybe deep in the water. And I would love to know about your journey with Navy. वहाँ पे कैसा रहा, क्या एक्सपीरियंस रहा?
Rajat, it's been a entire lifetime actually what you're asking me, and it's been a way of life. It's been a lifetime. I joined the Navy in 1987, straight out of my 12th standard. I I had got through the common entrance test, as used to call them at that time, in Karnataka, and I had got through in my engineering. I'd got mechanical, if I recollect correctly, and I had got it in my hometown, Mysore. And my parents, my father, who's also an army officer at that time, he was about to retire 2 months from then, and I could have merrily stayed at home and done my engineering and been happy at home. But then, as luck would have it, he happened to be in the army headquarters at that time, and the Navy came up with this scheme of 10+2 executive branch at the Naval Academy, and that time it was in Goa. And my father said, "Why don't you apply for this and have a look at it?" So I applied, and as luck would have it, I cleared the service selection board, and I got through in it. And from then, it was a different life story altogether. So I withdrew from my engineering seat, and then I got into the Navy, and 3 years of training at Naval Academy Goa, where we also got our graduation degree from the Goa University in oceanography and meteorology. And it was a very interesting phase of life because first time out of home, otherwise generally been with parents at all stages. So it was good to see a different a life being led in a different manner, and very interesting times because we used to it looked after the naval training looks after all aspects of life, right from your fitness to your eating to your health to your curriculum of studies to rest and recreation. So it provides you ample opportunities to do everything. So I utilized it to the hilt, and I used to be a good runner from before I joined the Navy itself. It probably in my genes because my father used to had taken part in the nationals of 5 and 10,000 meters. So I carried forward that legacy, and I did pretty well in the athletics part of the sports and other recreational activities that used to happen in the academy. So thereon, we passed out, and then we have a ship phase of about 6 months, which I was on. Now it is, of course, the new Beas has come in, INS Beas. We were in the old INS.
Okay.
And that was again a very different phase of life because we were suddenly in a confined environment. There were 23 of us on that, cooped up in a small area. So the ships did not have air conditioning, and so it was tough. We used to have something called pankha louvers, through which air used to come in, and we used to kind of sustain in some fashion in on the ships. It was a very tough, I would say, it was far tougher than the academy, if you ask me honestly. Though we were just there for 5 months, it was far tougher than the academy life. And it was the first time we experienced ships as well. So that itself was a lesson to be learned. And we got our sea legs, as they call it, while on Beas. And thereafter, we went on to become midshipmen. That was the first pre-officer kind of a training that we do. And we get exposed to how an officer lives his life and how they conduct themselves on a ship. So I did that. We were in Mumbai for that, and that was a very interesting phase also because I happened to join a brand new ship. She just got commissioned, INS Kuthar, and we were midshipmen on that. There were 4 of us who joined that, and it was very interesting times because we got to sail to Mauritius also on that. So that was our first overseas deployment as well. So it was very interesting times, and a lot of independence was given to us to function by the crew. So it was a very interesting period of life, and a lot of valuable lessons that would come in handy later while mentoring people, while mentoring subordinates. Those lessons that we learned there, I think, have stood me in good stead ever since. And the conduct of the crew on that particular ship was extremely good and very professional. And in fact, a few of them went on to become very senior officers in the Navy thereafter. That itself shows the caliber. So it was very heartening to see that. And once that got finished, then we got commissioned in July of 1991. Got commissioned, and we became sub lieutenants, and we started doing our regular, so to say, conduct of as officers in the Navy.
Right.
So, of course, there's initial period of somewhat training that happens. There's a lot of training that happens in the Navy. So that part is essential because that helps you function adequately when you actually take up your posts. So again, another year and a half of training went on after that. And that is an academic training part of it mainly. So we go to different schools, as they call it in the Navy, which teach different services subjects. And from there, we go on to do our what they call as a watchkeeping ticket. I was in the executive branch.
Okay.
So the executive branch needs to do what is called a watchkeeping ticket. Watchkeeping ticket basically means that you are allowed to stand independent watch at sea on a ship.
Okay.
So when the commanding
And
officer
how
is not
big
there,
that ship would be?
that depends. As far as the ticket is concerned, you can go to any ship.
Okay.
So we are all sent out to different ships. Depends on it's probably a draw of lot, or whichever way the Navy decides. It's they send you to different ships, and then usually the numbers reduce further. Like when we were cadets, we were 23 of us. Then as midshipmen, we were 4 of us. And as watchkeeping sub-lieutenants, we were just 2 of us. So the number keeps reducing, and then eventually you become a sole member of a ship where you're leading a particular, a task. So during watchkeeping, I ended up in Port Blair. So that was a very interesting time, and I was on board INS Cheetah, which happened to be a landing ship. So a very unique ship, flat bottom ship, and which lands troops and tanks and trucks onto the beach during either hostile operations or for evacuation. It can beach and get the troops on board and get them back. So it's meant for various kind of activities of that nature. So that was very interesting, and we sailed the length and breadth of the Andaman Islands. And at that time, the Navy was a little more relaxed, so we could have that time to ourselves where you could anchor at different locations off different beaches. Andamans was a great time, and we could see the length and breadth of the chain of islands. Indira Point, the Great Nicobar Islands, where Campbell Bay, the new port is coming up, the transshipment port is coming up, that part. And just Andamans in general, even the Nicobaris, the tribals, we could see them from a distance, the indigenous people of Andamans. So it was a marvelous time, and a lot of exploration because we were young, curious, a lot of energy. So it was great fun to be in Andamans, in the Navy at that stage in life. So thereafter, of course, we got into the rut of the Navy, so to say, after we got our ticket, and then the regular things, the push and pulls of services started off. And so I thereafter, after serving on ships for a few years, thereafter I decided to specialize as a combat diver. It is called clearance diving in the Navy, which basically is akin to a combat diver. So the role remains of combat. And basically, this has 2 aspects of professionalism. One is of mine clearance and mine laying, which is a kind of a dual role. And and the other is in case you're doing combat beach operations, where you're doing combat beach recce on a beach to check before the landing ships go in, before your troops go in, to check if the beaches are clear for the landing ships to come in. So those kind of activities are there. So it involves both a defensive role and an offensive role. So, and also in case any major underwater repairs on a ship has to take place, then that also can be undertaken while underwater. So you can actually weld and cut underwater. Not many people would know that, but you can actually undertake welding and cutting underwater. So those kind of trainings we went through. That's an 11-month course. It's quite a grueling course. And at the end of it, you become a clearance diving officer. So I did that, and then I got retained as an instructor at the diving school itself. So that was a good tenure for 5 years. You get to teach other people what you have done, and it is you can impart that lessons correctly because you're fresh out of the course, and you're the fittest at the peak of fitness at that.
Yeah.
So it was so like that. I mean, I can just go on forever if
Yes.
you want me to, but.
So combat diving part, I have an interesting question, but I'll come back to it afterwards. But before we go to it, you were an instructor. You were also part of skydiving instruction, and then
Yes.
you did that,
Yes.
right? Especially those sort of things, they generate fear. And this is something to Limca records. So that is like going beyond that fear. There is a problem, especially among youth, how to counter fear, how to go past it. And it's not just about the combat part or the military part, but other aspects of life too. So, what is your take on it?
You see, as far as fear is concerned, people have different levels of fear for various things.
Right.
Even diving is not an easy thing. It is actually, I would say, if you ask me honestly, if you grade the fear, I would say diving is a tougher job, especially military diving.
Okay.
Is a far tougher job than skydiving is. As far as the toughness and the fear factor is concerned, military diving, not scuba diving.
Sure.
Military diving is a far tougher sphere to be in. But I think you have to talk to yourself. You have to talk yourself into doing things which are above and beyond. So that's how you overcome your fear. And I totally agree with you that even while doing skydiving, it's not that on the first jump we were like heroes jumping off or something of that sort. We were also petrified. And skydiving, of course, came a little later in my life. I did that somewhere in 2001, and I was very fortunate that I could do it with my wife.
Okay.
My wife also happened to be in the Navy, and she was an air traffic controller.
Right.
And in 2001, we got selected by the Air Force to do this. We volunteered and we got picked up. So it was lucky, I would say. And so we both ended up in Gorakhpur, of all places. I'd never even heard of Gorakhpur.
Right.
In the Navy, you don't.
Yeah,
I'm
obviously.
otherwise from the south of India, and though my father was in the army, so posted all over there, but never been to UP or thereabouts. So
Right.
so Gorakhpur was a unique experience in itself. So I was fortunate that I happened to go with my wife there, and we both did the basic skydiving, the basic paratrooping course at that time,
Okay.
and then went on to do skydiving thereafter.
So I can understand why the element of fear was little less when
I know,
you were
actually,
with my-
actually. So, we used to draw strength from each other,
Sure.
So if you ask her, she will tell you that I jumped because he used to jump. And if you ask me, I would say the other way around, actually, because, and we could feed off each other's strengths.
Right.
And we could support each other that way. So it was great fun to do that course. And thereafter, we went on to do many more demonstration jumps and, in various locations with the Air Force across India, including Bhatinda, Trivandrum, all over the place, in fact, even in Wellington Staff College.
Okay.
So we did a whole lot of jumps everywhere. So that was a wonderful experience. And we also, the Limca book record that you talked about is basically of skydiving onto the aircraft carrier.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were stationed off, the aircraft carrier was stationed off Vizag. And this was just before the President's Fleet Review in 2006. So that's the time. It was just decided at the spur of the moment, and we hadn't really thought it through. I'm given to understand that the Air Force had been planning this for a very long time, and I had requested the Navy for this, but somehow it had never worked out for whatever reasons. But finally, I happened to be the staff officer to the Chief of Staff in Visakhapatnam. So I just mentioned to him that we could do this jump on Virat, and it's doable. So he said, "Are you sure you can do this?" I had not consulted the team. I had not asked the fellow jumpers. Nothing. We had not planned anything, honestly telling you. And so he said, "Are you sure you can do it?" We said, "Yes." Now, my wife was scheduled to carry a coffee table book during the President's Fleet Review, 2 days from then, and land in front of Mr. Abdul Kalam and hand over the coffee table book. He said, "What if Rashmi goes into water?" So I said, "We'll find her a different shoot. So that's not a problem." So he said, "Okay." So he picked up I still remember this very vividly. Admiral Chopra was the person. He was the Chief of Staff. He later on went on to become CNC East and retired thereafter. So he picked up his pad and he walked across to the CNC's office. And he came back 15 minutes later and said, "It's through." So, it struck me at that time that we had got into something that we were really not prepared for. So that's the time I immediately gave a call to my wife and I said, "This is on." So then we called up the rest of the team. There were 9 of us. And the rest were all Marine commandos.
Okay.
And I was the diver in that. And my wife was an air traffic controller. So just a plain swimmer.
Right.
So, she was the least qualified as far as water was concerned. But jumps-wise, she was very qualified. But water-wise, she was the least qualified. And this happened so fast because there was no time. Because the ships had to line up for the anchorage, which is part of the President's Fleet Review. Right. And also the window was very short because the next day there was supposed to be the President Fleet Review.
Of course.
So as a result, we just quickly all got together and then we got into the aircraft at the Seeking. We got into a Seeking at INS Dega, which is the air station at Visakhapatnam. Flew on to Virat. This happened the very next day or the same afternoon. I don't recollect very much now. But probably the next day. And we went on to Virat. We were called into the operations room. We were given a briefing as to how the thing is and where the ship is and how it's going to happen and things like that. We were carrying our chutes with us. We put on our chutes and went off to jump. It was that fast. And of course, we had boats deployed across around the ship in case somebody went into water for rescue. But I would say it's a surreal experience, honestly telling you, because when you are at 8,000-9,000 feet and you look down into the water, you see nothing but blue and a ship that is the size of a 25 paise coin. And the Sea has a leg rest that on which it's a step actually on which you step out and then come onto the tarmac when you want to step out of the aircraft. So that thing has got it's like a grill. It's got holes in it.
Okay.
You could actually see the carrier through that hole. So it is that small. So,
that aircraft carrier.
Yeah, aircraft carrier. Imagine aircraft carrier. We're looking like you could see it through one of those holes. So and very clearly.
Right.
So that's the kind of fear factor you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so we decided to do the jumps in lots of 3.
Sure.
So that we are well spaced out because we didn't want to stack up on each other and have problems while landing. So in 3 sticks we call it. So we jumped in 3 sticks. And so we all landed, and fortunately all of us landed very fine, and we were all safe at the end of the day. Right. And that was the important part, because on a ship there are many aspects that can go wrong, because you have these antennae sticking out of the ship. You have the funnel through which smoke is coming out, because the ship is at that time running her generator sets and things like that. So all those factors come, and there also the excitement of seeing people land at sea. This was the first time it was being done. So the excitement, so the entire crew was on the deck. So there were people all over with shouting, and you could see the excitement in the people. And there was a steady wind blowing, so you need to factor for that also. And the problem with landing on a carrier vis-a-vis land is that there are very little reference points. Now, when you're landing on land, the advantage is you can make out your ground speed by looking at your ground. Right. Here there's water, so there's no reference for you. Okay. And also you're not landing on the water. You're landing on a thing that is about 15 meters above the water. Right. Because you're landing on the deck.
Yes.
So you have to cater for that also. So there are multiple factors that come into here, apart from the antennae and the other things that are sticking out. Right. And a hard metal deck. You're not landing on soft ground. You're landing on a hard metal.
Not on sand or
not on
grass,
sand or soil or something, or grass for that matter. So it is a complex process. Fortunate that all of us made it. I would apart from our own skills, I would also say that it's God's grace that all of us were safe and we all landed. Right. Because it requires a little bit of luck, all said and done. Of course. It requires a little bit of luck to get it right, and get it right in one go. Yeah. And all of us being safe, I think that was the greatest part of it.
So it was such a surreal moment that you did it twice?
No, we did it just once. We did it just once. In fact, I say that even if I'm paid next time, I'm not going to do it. So this we did it for the thrills of it. Okay. But even if we are paid, it's not an easy thing to do. So lots can go wrong. Lots can go wrong. And the lesser you know about things that can go wrong, the better off you are.
Exactly.
It's after you do the jump once that you realize what all can go wrong. So then you start getting worried about it. Yes. I mean, that's just jokes apart. But we had thought through the whole thing. It had been well planned, and we had gone through it mentally as to how we would go about it. So I think that's, like you were talking, your original question was about how to overcome fear. I think the best way to overcome fear is to face it, actually. So, when I joined the Navy, I was a non-swimmer. I didn't know how to swim. Okay. So from there, I became a diver. Just because I wanted to overcome my fear. Right. Apart from other things, apart from the thrill of it, apart from the bragging rights of being a diver, apart from all that, it was more of overcoming fear and just taking one step at a time and conquering it. I think the same goes for skydiving also. Nobody can say that when the door opens of the aircraft at 10, 12,000, 14,000 feet, they're not afraid. I think they're foolish if they're not afraid. So you will be afraid. It is just a question of overcoming that fear and going ahead with what is required to be done. So I think that's the life lesson from this.
So taking this life lesson, and especially with your experience of Navy, when you came to PSCUs, what did you unlearn or learn something new, or maybe some of the elements of learning from Navy which helped you during PSU, this transition part?
Oh, there are lots of things that you can carry forward from the Navy, actually, because the Navy is a very good mentor and a very good trainer. And it brings you a whole skill set that is, I would say, it's unfortunate that many outside don't get exposed to that skill set when they grow, and they may pick it up along the way much later. But in the Navy, it is a very structured kind of a training that happens, very structured kind of mentoring that happens, and I think that really stands you in good stead in any profession, whether it's within the Navy itself or even when you step out. So that, because you tend to internalize these things after some time, because you've done it so many times over, they become integral of your nature. So automatically, you benefit from that. One, of course, is discipline. The other is time management. The third is, the financial jurisprudence. You don't waste money. You're very careful about how you spend the money.
Right.
And because it's government money, so you're very careful about that. Then aspects of, looking after the welfare of people. I think that comes in very high on priority, which is, I find, very absent when you come to organizations outside. There are very few organizations that I see that actually look after their people. So I think looking after your human resource is a very important aspect which the Navy teaches you, which the armed forces teaches you. And because unless you look after the man or the woman, so to say, you will not get the results from them, and they'll not have loyalties to the organization. You can actually cultivate loyalty to the organization amongst people by being empathetic. I think that is what you need to be. And in the Navy, fortunately, what happens is that you go through a number of ships, you go through a number of shore establishments where you serve, and you come across a whole cross section of people.
Right.
Now, human nature, I won't say everybody in the armed forces is perfect. I won't say that. There are all shades of grey. So you see what is good, what works for you, what suits your personality, and you pick up those habits from those people. But I would say that there is a large proportion of people who are doing good rather than not doing it the right way. So there is a whole set of people from whom you can pick up habits and understand how it is. And there's also a lot of mentorship that goes on. So people take it upon themselves to explain things to you, to teach you, which really stands you in good stead and really builds your character. So I think all those things really help you when you come into a PSU environment, because PSU it's just another organization. It is also, it is autonomous, but it is still a Government of India organization.
Yes.
So you still need to look after your people. You still need to do business in the correct fashion. You still need to utilize money correctly. You still need to meet all those requirements which the Government of India regulations require you to do. You still have to be disciplined. There's still management involved. The only new aspect that gets added here is business development.
Yeah,
I would say that. And I think business development is, I think it is inherent in a person. So the person either has it or he doesn't have it. Yeah, I would say that. I don't think the Navy has a reflection on that, because obviously we don't do any business development in the Navy.
Right.
I think it's inherent, and I didn't know whether I had it or not, honestly, when I joined. But I realized pleasantly, to my pleasant surprise, that I could do reasonably well, and I could understand things as far as business was concerned pretty quickly. And I think that is one of though Navy may not teach you business development directly, but it teaches you adaptability, and it teaches you how to overcome change, and how to work in an environment which is where you're not sure of things, where you're unsure of the inputs that are coming to you. And about the, it's like what we call the fog of war.
Exactly, to fog of war, which I was about to ask earlier about the diving part. Because when you're diving, when you're inside deep water, maybe your one hand does not know what is the other hand doing, and there is lack of information. You're not able to see everything. When you're jumping skydiving, you are seeing the aircraft carrier with just a hole, but here you are missing lots of information. And when an entrepreneur, or with regards to business development part, when organization, it interacts with people, they do not have all the information. And how have you managed all of these things while with your transition, if I can ask?
I think I've had good shipmates.
Okay.
So I call them shipmates because I'm used to that term. And otherwise, they're good colleagues who have been with me in my organizations, in both NERAMAC and in NHDC. I think people are professional. They know what they're doing. They advise you 9 out of 10 times correctly. So it is important to seek advice. It is important to be open to ideas. And it is important to be adaptive. So you cannot be too. Even I followed this principle while in the Navy. I think it's my nature, so it helped me that way. So I am not too rigid about a thing to be done in a particular manner. I personally believe that any one thing can be done in 10 different ways. Your way, it's not your way or the highway. There are other people who are as bright as you, if not brighter, who can do things as who can reach the same result. Maybe different routes they take, and there's no harm done in experimenting with a different route. So I give that opportunity to my colleagues who are with me and my subordinates. I give them that opportunity to experiment and learn on their own also. So that's part of mentorship actually, because unless you give them freedom, they will not arrive at the correct conclusion on their own. So it is important to do that. So I've exercised that part also. So this lack of information gets filled up because the people see the freedom of functioning. So they come with the information to you, and if you are going wrong, they don't mind advising you, saying that this may not result in the manner that you're looking at. So it's better to be a little cautious here. So those kind of things we have done, and I'm happy to report that all my 3 years in NERAMAC we made profits, and also in NHDC this last financial year, after 2017-18, this is the first time we have made an operational profit.
Wow.
So I think it has worked. So
That's an achievement.
yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So there is a famous saying by U.S. General, if I'm right, that amateurs talk about strategies, but experts study logistics. And you have studied defense and security, 4 masters and 1 MPhil, and being in Navy, then going to NERAMAC, and then NHDC. It may look like 3 careers, but if I may be so blunt, it is one, because there is talk about logistics. It's about supply chain. It's about procurement. It's about pricing. It's about, again, related to business development, but through a logistics perspective. Maybe delivering something which is very far flung, where resources are very less, and deciding that too from a top down approach. So all three carry those elements, be it NERAMAC, so Northeastern region, agriculture, the marketing of those products, and to those markets who have not even heard of those Northeastern towns or cities, right? Similarly with NHDC. So if you look from this perspective, the logistics perspective, the supply chain network perspective, the connections, the networks, buyer, seller, how do you now visualize the NHDC and the future to it?
Logistics is not just about transporting one thing to the one from one place to the other. It's not just that. It is also about building relations. So I think that is what the most important aspect of any business is, because unless you can build relations and build trust by way of building relations and by delivering what you have promised, you cannot succeed in business. That's a bottom line actually. I've realized that. And it may lead to in case you take shortcuts, you may have short term gains. But if you want to have a reputation, if as an organization, as an individual, if you want to actually deliver what you plan to in the long term, then the only way to do it is to build relations. So I think as far as logistics is concerned, apart from the mechanics of the logistics, where you have a truck taking an item from one place to the other, I think building trust and relations is equally important. So knowing the right people who can help you in the time of need for meeting logistic requirements, for expanding your projects, for expanding whatever activities you wish to undertake in a particular remote area, where you can assist, in NHDC's case, the weavers, or in NERAMAC's case, the agricultural producers. So that is very important, because I think that is a very important aspect of logistics which needs to be thought through.
So now extending to this particular point, how can you explain what NHDC does to, let's say, a common man or normal audience?
Thanks for asking me that, because I would love to tell you what we have and what we have in mind and what we are looking at doing as we go along. Now, it's been about a year and a half since I have taken over NHDC, and by name it is the National Handloom Development Corporation. So it is meant and created for the sake of development of handloom ecosystem. Right? So that is what the name means, and that's all a mandate is also. So I think it is important that we look at the entire ecosystem and not just look at the lucrative parts of the ecosystem. Because from the business point of view, there's always a temptation to look at the lucrative parts of the ecosystem. But I think as a Government of India organization, which we are, I think it is important that we take on the responsibility of the not so lucrative part also, where it addresses the needs of the ecosystem and the need of the weaver. So I'm looking at doing the entire value chain. So what we have been doing traditionally is supply of yarn and dyes and chemicals. Now this yarn is supplied all over the country, from the manufacturing hubs of cotton, say in Hyderabad and Coimbatore, to or jute jute, coir, etc. in Kolkata, or silk in Bangalore. Or if you're looking at eri silk and other specialized silks, then probably in the northeast. From there to the rest of India is what we are looking at as far as supplies are concerned. So we have these mills that are onboarded, and we have these beneficiaries that are onboarded. Now we match the two. That has been the primary job. Also, dyes and chemicals, we supply them, because for all fabric, some sort of a dyeing is done. It could be either natural or could be chemical processes. But we are trying to promote natural dyes now. So we are engaging more and more with people who are actually doing manufacturing natural dyes now. And natural dyes has also matured over a period of time. And we are at a good phase in natural dyes, because they have been kind of industrialized now. So though they are extracted naturally, but they are available in packaging and in method of using where it is similar to a chemical dye.
Right. So it's easy to
transport, easy to accept, easy to, it has, the properties have improved. People have done work on it. So the properties have improved. So your color fastness, how long it stays, all those sort of things, how many rubs it can handle, all those sort of things it has improved drastically. So I feel that handloom, being a sustainable product in itself, putting a chemical dye in between spoils the whole show. So we have to continue, we have to push for natural dyes to come into that, so that handloom and natural dyes go hand in hand, and we check all the boxes as far as sustainability is concerned. Right. So that is one aspect that we're looking at. NHDC is also looking at the part where we are undertake some projects for the benefit of people. Okay. So like we have recently put up a proposal for a creation of a handloom park. Okay. So so in case that comes up, in case that gets sanctioned, then we would have set up a huge facility where large number
similar to a textile, a PM Mitra park.
Not to that scale, of course on a much smaller scale, but it's like a mini handloom park.
Sure.
So we'll have about like a large number of looms in upwards of 200, 250, and there'll be a facility that will get created, and there'll be a natural dyeing facility, there'll be a yarn
common facilities,
so that it covers the entire value chain of the fabric creation as far as handloom is concerned. That is one aspect we are doing. The other thing that we are addressing to a large extent is traceability. Now, traceability becomes very important, because if you're looking at consumer satisfaction and confidence as far as product is concerned,
especially when export is
concerned, you have something called the digital passport nowadays. Europe has moved into digital passport. Now that basically means that you are able to trace the product from the time it is being harvested till the time it is turned into what you are going to buy. So for that we need to have a system. So we thought we'll break it up into phases. So the first phase that we are looking at is, how do we distinguish between handloom and powerloom? Now, powerloom has generally, I would say, spoiled the market to an extent, because they claim themselves, if they are working on their own, there's no problem. Right. The problem comes when they claim themselves to be handloom. That is where the problem comes. I've got nothing against powerloom, because it's essential. Because there are certain mundane things like bed sheets, etc., that can be made by powerloom by all means. There's no need to waste a person's time on making a bed sheet. But there are various aspects of handloom which are very typical to a handloom, and which have their own, handloom is basically a living heritage. Now you can't corrupt that with powerloom and can't claim that to be handloom. So that is what is happening in a lot of places. So we thought that is a major point, because unless you have faith restored in handloom, the art will not thrive, and the art will not sustain and survive. So that's when we, with the help of the ministry, we've got a project going where we're looking at an IoT device being fitted on the loom.
Okay.
So the IoT device is linked to an app, and that to a QR code. So the QR code gets registered the moment the weaver starts his work, and the IoT device is geotagged to that position. So the QR code is woven onto the fabric. So it's not stitched, it's not stapled. it is woven onto the fabric. So when the weaving starts, the QR code gets woven. It's a separate piece of cloth and it gets woven onto the fabric. And when a customer scans the QR code, he gets multiple information. One, he gets a photograph of the weaver because he does that as a part of the exercise. He gets a photograph of the
loom
weaver
that is
on the product that he's making.
Sure.
That same product which he's got in his hand, the loom and the item being on the loom and the weaver being there come together.
Right.
He also has a 30-second clip of that,
about
a video
the person, yeah.
clip of that happening. Then he gets to know what the fiber that is being used, what yarn is being used in it. So that data can be fed. He knows how much time it has taken to make it.
Super.
So as a consumer, he knows that he is buying the right product and he knows whom he is helping.
Right.
So it creates a story in itself. So
That's very important.
that storytelling is important
Very
as part of your business.
Yes.
So that creates a story in itself. So that is what we are looking at doing. And we've already started the project. It's got sanctioned. We already started the project. The ministry is very particular about implementing it in full gusto. So we are trying to go all guns blazing as far as this is concerned. So we are doing that. The other thing that has got that we have got a sanction for, which we are going to implement very shortly, is a handloom entrepreneurship school. In the Northeast. So what we found is that there is a slight amount of gap that is there in our ecosystem. Now there's a lot of skill training that is happening, and there's a lot of buying that is happening at the other end. But the weaver getting converted to an entrepreneur, or the right kind of entrepreneurs getting associated with weaving. So the gap that lies is for the entrepreneur getting created, the right entrepreneur with the right knowledge set. So what we thought of, and thankfully the ministry saw that we are going on the right direction, so they approved the project, is that we said let's start with a pilot in the Northeast, because Northeast is big on entrepreneurship, because they like to do this, as by nature they are inclined towards entrepreneurship. So, and we said let's select only women and let's look at only youth. Now youth by definition is anybody between 18 to 29. So we said we'll choose between 18 to 29, only women who are from the community, who already know weaving. So we're not going to teach them weaving. That skill training we're not going to do. Maybe in case required if they have some minor course correction required in weaving, we can do that. But the idea is not to teach them weaving.
Right.
The idea is to teach them entrepreneurship. So what do you require to be an entrepreneur? You need digital literacy. You need financial literacy.
Yes.
You need your pitch, how to pitch your product.
Right.
So we thought we'll focus on those.
Right.
And we made a curriculum for 12 weeks based on that. And which has been highly appreciated. In fact, we put the curriculum through NIFT, we put the curriculum through a number of other IIMs. So we asked everybody to have a look at it and then give their comments. They were all very happy with the curriculum that we had drawn up with minor changes, and it's come out beautifully. So it's a 12-week curriculum that will run, and it'll be a batch of 30 women.
Okay.
It'll be a residential program.
Okay.
And at the end of it, once they finish the curriculum, they will have continuous hand-holding from the institute. It's not that we're going to let them go after that. So there'll be a helpline that will get created. So in case they wish to ask doubts, because obviously when you start working is when you start getting the doubts and uncertainties about certain things. So we created that. So they can call back. We are also looking at how to do a mentorship program in this. So amongst the people who come to as faculty, visiting faculty, we'll see if they are interested. We'll try to attach a person with a mentor. So, there can be a continuous interaction with them in case required. So we are looking at that aspect also. So we are hopeful that we'll launch this program 4 to 5 months from now. Soon after Diwali, I think we'll be in a position to launch this. So that's what we're looking at. So like this, we are doing a number of other projects where we are looking at how we can do interventions into the ecosystem. GI is also one of them. If you wish, we could talk about that subsequently.
Yeah, of course. So GI, and then when you're talking about traceability, again, GI has been a very important tool of intellectual property rights for the communities. It's not just about individual, it's about the communities. But they're also sometimes consumers, or sometimes from an importer perspective, let's say we take European countries or USA. From their perspective also, there has been issues with quality, issues with the truth, or maybe the factual nature of that, whether this particular loom has GI tag or not. So how are you managing all of these? Including how are we encouraging more weavers or weaving communities to take up GI tags?
So see, there is, going with my experience of NERAMAC, what I feel is there is a lot of work being done in the field of GI, but there is very limited work being done in post GI. So, like I said, while business, it's good to go to lucrative aspects of the business, there is somebody who has to do the grunt work also. So, we chose that we'll do the grunt work. So, we decided that we will do post GI activity, because that is where the translation of the GI into monetization happens for the
viewers,
beneficiary,
exactly.
The authorized user, it's called.
Exactly.
For the authorized user, that is where the monetization happens.
Sure.
And that is what is important for that person.
Sure.
Otherwise certificate is fine. It's of no value as long as it's monetized.
Exactly.
So that's when we decided that we will work towards that. So when I was in NERAMAC also, we did a whole lot of work in post-GI activity, where we created authorized users. Advantage is that as far as marketing is concerned, even the ministries involve themselves a lot in exhibitions being conducted and those things where marketing happens. So that is not a major problem. That also is an aspect, but it's not a major problem. That is already being looked after. The authorized user creation is where not much activity is happening. So that's when we did in the NERAMAC, like I mentioned, we did a whole lot of work there. Even in NHDC, what we have done is we have created a GI facilitation center. So in that GI facilitation center, through that, we're looking at undertaking authorized users. In fact, in the last, in just about 10 months, 8-10 months now, we've been at it now. And we have done for about, I think around 18-19 products. We have already created not less than 100 in each. So there are about, I think somewhere around 2,000-2,500 authorized users that we have created in the last 8-10 months. And some of the products of GI had 0 authorized users when we started. So from there, it's been quite a steep gain for them. And also, what I find very interesting is when I make it a point to try and go to these awareness camps when we do it, because the subject personally interests me. So I try to go to these camps, and it's very interesting to see that these people are totally unaware of the value of the GI that is there. It's very sad, but they're unaware of it. And once they start understanding it, then they realize that there is potential in this. So it's a two-way street, in the sense that it's not just the weaver or the artisan who needs to understand GI. It's even the consumer who needs to understand GI, because unless you recognize a GI for what it is worth, you'll not be willing to pay that extra buck for it. So it's a time-consuming process. Like I said, it's grunt work. So it's a time-consuming process, and you have to be at it. So our job is to make sure that we popularize GI. We keep talking about it wherever we get a chance, make the consumer aware of it, and at the same time, we help the weavers in becoming authorized users in their products. And that process itself takes about 8-10 months of becoming an authorized user, apart from filling up the application forms, sending it to GI registry, and they have a process, because it's all legal. So they also have a process which they need to adhere to, which they really can't take shortcuts. And if they do shortcuts, then the veracity of the whole program comes into question. So they have to follow the legal process. So that also takes some time. So 8 to 10 months it takes before the person becomes an authorized user, and then he can start using the GI tag on his product along with his authorized user number, which will immediately identify this to be a GI product. And in the traceability project that I mentioned, we are inserting the GI also in it. If the product which we are doing traceability for happens to be a GI product, then he'll get that the consumer has an option of getting diverted to the GI registry website, where he can see the certificate for himself and know that it's an authentic GI product. So we have integrated there in that fashion.
Okay. So let's say if I'll ask you, if there is some weaver or master weaver or community of weavers or an entrepreneur who is working in this field, looking at you and trying to find out a guidance or a mentorship in the field of GI, or let's say post-GI authentication part. So what will you suggest? What should that particular person, he or she, should do? What will be your suggestion, just directly?
We have, NHDC has an advantage of having a very wide spread. So we are geographically located in 8 regions as regional offices.
Yes.
Apart from that, we have 27 branch offices. And since we supply yarn to weavers, we are known amongst the weavers. So as an organization, the community knows us.
Right. So you have that credibility, trust.
Yes. Not just the trust, we already have the reach. So reach is also important, because they know who we are. So, and now that we are doing these awareness camps, and our regions are conducting it themselves.
Right.
We sublet it to our regions to undertake it so that they are aware of the community around them. If it is their product in their region, they do it. So they also connect with the community that much more on the GI level. So automatically, the person who wants to know something about this comes back to us. And we have had a lot of queries coming after we've started these awareness camps. So we have had queries coming from the viewers saying that how can they further utilize it? What is it that they can do once they get an authorized user certificate? How do they use it? And those sort of queries. So we are addressing those queries as and when they come. So that part we are handling.
Right. So now the entrepreneurship aspect which you were talking to. Let's say we take the generations, the new younger generations of weavers, especially weavers' children, because this is a cultural or heritage-based art, or artisans are such. Uh, let's say a young person, maybe a 12th pass or maybe a college graduate, maybe in this particular market, he or she can earn more if they join Swiggy or Zomato for let's say just food delivery, right? Maybe that much they will not be earning through handlooms. Now, in this situation, how to bring these generations, especially who have understanding, but they are failing it because they're asking, give me a number, give me like how much I'm going to earn in a month or in a quarter or in a year. So, in that situation, how NHDC is. I understand your entrepreneurship drives your schools, but still, for a young person, how do you what will you talk to him or how?
I think this is a very important aspect you brought about because there has been a increasing trend wherein we are finding it difficult for the weaver's child
Right.
to do weaving.
Yes.
That is, there is an increasing trend of they not being interested in coming back to their parents' profession. Now, there are multiple reasons for it. One is that it's backbreaking work. It's very tough work. The conditions of work where they are, the work environment
Right.
is not the most conducive. Like you mentioned Swiggy, Zomato. I would even go to say that if you're a guard at a mall, you're standing in an AC environment.
Yes.
Here you're sitting in a pit loom on the ground and trying to get work done. And you're working 8 hours a day continuously.
Right.
And the amount you get paid depends on the effort that you put in.
Right.
Which is not the case in case you're a guard at a mall.
Right.
You're just standing there, and as long as you're standing there for that 8 hours,
Right.
you'll get your pay. So there is a problem there. But herein lies the advantage of being a entrepreneur in weaving, whereas vis-a-vis that. One is there's a lot of self-respect. I think that aspect needs to be brought about. It's not all about money at all times. It's also about self-respect. It's about helping the community also. And apart from it being a living heritage, like I mentioned, there is no doubt about that. But I think it is important to explain to the youth, and there are a lot of them who are coming back now. There is an increasing trend again, like I mentioned. There has been a trend of it going down, but increasingly you will find some people are attaching themselves back to weaving in terms of being entrepreneurs.
Okay.
That is where our aspect of not becoming weavers, but entrepreneurs. That is where our aspect of handloom entrepreneurship school came in.
Right.
Because that's when we saw that this is where we can attract the youth to come back. Because the youth wants to have some leadership position. They like that kind of a thing. Right. And they have the energy to do it. They have the tech know-how to do it. Right. Because of the increase in proliferation of technology. They've been able to figure this thing out now. So they can utilize technology to benefit their own community. So they have realized that slowly. And we are finding that people are associating themselves with that. So I think that is where we can also encourage people, and we can when we meet the youth, we have these one aspect which I should mention is that we have these IIHTs, Indian Institute of Handloom Technology.
Right.
They have vacancies for weavers' children.
Okay.
So they can do technology. They can study there. They can get BTechs there. They can they become diploma holders there. They have all those advantages which they get by virtue of being weavers' kids.
Right.
So they can get those qualifications, and then they can come back and work in entrepreneurship.
Right.
So that's an aspect that we can.
Right. So you have been part of security overall infrastructure scenario. Now coming to the economic security part, from a village or maybe a household, starts with that household, a community, a village, then this district with ODOPs, multiple things are happening. But when we look at the bigger picture, the national picture, Right now, we are exporting around, I think, $140 million of handlooms, right? And Honorable Minister has given a target of $10 billion by 2031. So this 5 years, the next 5 years, what do you think what we are going to do or what we should be doing so that we can achieve that particular target, ensuring the national economic security to the last handloom weaver?
I think export is a very important aspect because Indian handlooms, like I mentioned earlier, it's a living heritage, and I think people ought to be exposed to it. I don't think any other country in the world has the kind of cross section of designs, weaves, and the skill set that our people possess. And I think it's very important to tell the correct story to ensure that the product is finds the right market. Now, we have been focusing a lot on the European and the American market. And I think that's where the money is. So that's how people have been focusing on that. But I think there are other countries like in Africa also that and in South America that we need to start looking at and see how we can promote handloom products in those areas. Now, there are, like you rightly mentioned, the ministry is very focused on it, and there are a lot of schemes that the ministry runs for promotion of exports. And there is also a number of organizations within the ministry, apart from NHDC also, who are focused on exports. So we are also, unfortunately, till now we have not done any exports. So my target this financial year is to get into exports as much as possible and at least make a decent beginning. So to that extent, we are first of all, from last year onwards we started participating in international fairs. So that helped us understand how the thing functions because till then we hadn't done that either. So we went to Morocco and we went to Sri Lanka where we took 20 weavers each and they set up their products there. They were very happy at the end of the day because they got some linkages and they are able to come back home and start the business, though minor, but they've been able to start something at least. So we have helped weavers to that extent. So this year we are going to 3 countries, and so we are hopeful that increasingly we'll be able to take more and more weavers and expose them to the international markets so that they can set up their linkages and they can start doing business.
Right.
NHDC as such also we are exploring the option of exporting yarns and also dyes and chemicals.
Right.
So we ourselves are in talks with various agencies to see how we can start our own exports. So to that we have also reached out to some private agencies who run platforms that do exports.
Right.
So we are in talks with them and we are hopeful that we'll be able to close some deals at least in this financial year and contribute towards the larger export window that the ministry is looking at. So that's where it stands.
When we are talking about exports, see, we have heard made in Italy, but if you want to highlight hand woven in India, not just make in India or made in India, it needs, maybe I would say, transformation. It needs a rebranding. It needs a different approach. And I agree with you when you're saying it's not just US and Europe. There are lots of other countries where we can export. But similarly, the handwoven in India is one challenge, but also countries like Vietnam and Bangladesh are also our challenges because they are our competitors. So how are you navigating these two scenarios?
So I think as far as international market is concerned, traceability becomes a major issue because unless you have traceability in place, the market confidence doesn't come into the product. So the project that we are doing on traceability, I think that will bring about a lot of change in the approach of consumers. And once this word spreads of how we are doing this traceability and how effective it is and how we are distinguishing between a power loom and a handloom, I think that will make a major difference in the marketing strategies.
Right. And with traceability, if you can bring the elements of sustainability, which is
Absolutely.
anyway part of handlooms,
Absolutely.
right? And let's take the example of recent India, US, UK FTA.
Yeah.
So there, I think textile and especially handlooms are going to be really good exports to Britain. So these are really good opportunities.
Yeah, I think the
which we can see.
sustainability part which you brought out is I think it's very, very valid because it's a zero carbon product.
Yeah.
What handloom is,
Right.
because first of all the whole process is handmade. Very little electricity is used because whatever electricity is for the person to work under,
That's it. Yeah.
that is
Light,
about
fan,
it. That
maybe
light
that's
fan
it.
is what is that is being utilized. Apart from that, there is no machinery that comes into play at all.
Right.
So it's a totally a carbon free kind of a product.
Right.
And if you're using natural dyes, along with it, then it further adds to the charm. And so that way, I think we are doing, the product needs to be sold in that fashion. And we have this, there's a new center of excellence also that's come up in IIT Delhi. Just yesterday it got inaugurated. So they are also working towards carbon credits and things like that, and how we can get carbon credits out of this. So that will also add to the pocket of the weaver eventually. So we are trying to mix and match and see how best we can benefit the weaver.
So benefit the weaver, if I'll just ask you if you can give us some ideas about, let's say, how for financing purposes or or maybe through different schemes, how you are directly benefiting weavers or entrepreneurs in this regard.
See, as far as NHDC is concerned, we undertake like I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, we do this yarn supply.
Right.
Now that comes under the raw material supply scheme. That is the scheme
RMSs.
RMSs. That's the scheme that we run through the ministry scheme that we run, and we are the implementing agency for that.
Okay.
Now, as part of that, we provide, based on the number of looms a person has, there is a quota that has been given to each loom.
Okay.
So, and the type of yarn that he's procuring, he or she is procuring. So, be it cotton, mulberry, eri, silk, basically. So, there's a quota for each loom as to how much a weaver can take per month. Now, based on that quota, he can demand the yarn, and the yarn, he pays for it, of course, but the yarn comes in based on that, and he gets a 15% DBT.
Okay.
On the yarn. So 15% is a straight away an advantage which he has with the market, because he's got subsidized for the yarn. And the beauty of the whole thing is that he gets a transport subsidy also, which brings it to him at mill gate price. So if a person in Guwahati is wanting to buy cotton from Coimbatore, he'll get it at the same price as a weaver in Coimbatore gets it at, plus a 15% subsidy, which anyway he's entitled to. So it works out a big advantage to them, and transport is zero, actually, not nearly. Transport is zero, and the 15% subsidy goes directly to his bank, and so he can utilize that as the subsidy amount.
So now, almost at the end of our conversation, I'll just ask you one or two simple questions. As a person who likes handloom products, who uses it, let's say, as an Indian, if I want to visit one handloom cluster, like this is a place where you should go and see the processes, see how they're working, what will you suggest? Maybe a cluster.
It would depend on what you're interested in.
Okay.
So if you're interested in, say, tie and dye or block printing, then I think Gujarat is a very good place to go to. If you go to Kutch, Bhuj especially, Bhuj has got both tie and dye, ikat, and it has block printing. So that's a good place to see. I'm wearing a Sambalpuri ikat.
Okay.
So you can go to Sambalpur in Odisha,
right,
and you can have a look at, again, tie and dye processes going on there.
Sure.
If you're interested in silk getting made, then Banaras is a good place. Banarasi sari, of course, we all know of it.
Yes.
So that is a place to visit. So you can see that.
Right.
If you want to see Pashmina, then I think Ladakh is a good place to see. Though Kashmir Pashmina is more popular, but I would say Ladakh was also coming up in a big way as far as Pashmina is concerned.
Okay.
And you must visit. There are some very good clusters and entrepreneurs who have created those clusters working in Pashmina. So Looms of Ladakh, there is Lena Ladakh. They are all organizations that are working in Pashmina. So you can visit them. And similarly, if you want to see Kanjivaram, you can go south. You want to see Dharmavaram, you can go to Andhra. So there is no end to it, actually. Like I mentioned, there are actually 116 weaves in which different types of saris are made. 116 types. So there is no end to it. So if you have a particular place in mind or a particular weave that you have in mind, you can get in touch. I'll let you know where to go and whom to visit there.
Sure, but I'll hold you to it.
Certainly. But my only appeal to everybody is that please do buy a piece of handloom every year, at least at the very minimal. Right. That's the least you can do to help the weavers. And this is not charity. It is. Don't look at it as charity. Don't look at it as something you're doing as a favor to anybody. It is you're doing yourself a favor. It is our culture, our heritage. You're preserving it, and you're contributing to its preservation. So I think it's very important that the least you can do is buy a cloth of a piece of fabric of handloom, be it a sari, be it a jacket, be it a shirt, or anything of that sort, be it a dhoti, anything that is made out of made from the handloom. I think it is important to own it. Right. And if you buy one every year, it's a kind of a habit forming thing, and I'm sure start liking once you start wearing them. You like them as well, because there's nothing not to like in it.
Just to add, I think I was in college when I first bought a shirt, a kurta, a short shirt. It was that was of Handloom. Now, what you have mentioned, I'll just take liberty to tell our viewers that you were also instrumental in releasing a comics, which talked about a lot about different handlooms and how it was a beautiful comics, very well written story, where in a fantasy world, how different yarns are basically important for our existence. So, living heritage and now for our existence.
This it's good you brought this up. I would have missed it otherwise. So this is it's titled "The Quest for the Sacred Cloth." So we based it. I conceptualized it, but it was of course written by a very well-known fashion curator called Mr. Bidappa, Prasad Bidappa. He's the one who's behind this, and he's the entire brain behind this the story. So he created a scenario of 5 children, similar to Enid Blyton's famous 5. So the 5 children, and there was a dog also there, similar to that. And he spun a story of 6 weaves,
right?
And he has created different situations, and he has shown how handloom has how that particular type of weave has grown, and how that particular weave came about, and who were the who's who were involved in making sure that that weave survived, and how well it is done. So it is a very good insight, not just for children. We made it as a comic book, but it's not just for children. It's for anybody who's interested in handlooms and who's interested in anything to learn about heritage. I think it's a very good comic book to own. It is available on Amazon, and it can be bought off Amazon on Kindle. It can be read on the Kindle.
I'll second that, because I have read it, and I think it feels like a homage to few people who have worked in this particular weaving handloom field. And also it brought about the challenges as well, like what right now they are facing, and how those children are overcoming those challenges.
That. So it's basically we have created a power loom sector that is attacking the handloom sector. So it's been made into a story, though it's nobody's attacking anyone, but it's been made into a story to make it interesting. And certain amount of artistic freedom has been given there to function. So it's come out very nicely at the end of the day, and it's been very well received. We have not only got the book in English and Hindi, but now we have translated it into 9 regional languages and also 2 international languages. So it's in German and Japanese as well. So we are looking at spreading the book as much as we can.
I think for hand woven in India, that for brand, this is also
a very good thing. Yes, that's one of the things that NHDC has started doing, which we hadn't done earlier.
Okay, so the last question. We have talked about handlooms, we talked about NHDC, but still you are a Navy person. So right now, what do you miss about sea, if I'll ask? The last question.
That's a very profound question, actually. It has, the sea has a certain amount of freedom to it because of its vastness. So when you are at sea, you feel kind of untethered.
Yeah.
And you have that kind of feeling that you are floating and that you are, away from everything. And since you cannot communicate with your family when you're at sea, so you feel that you're in a different space altogether. And the shipmates whom you're with become your family. So it's like a family away from a family. So and the bonds that you create while in the Navy, especially when you're on a ship, they're very strong bonds that you have. So, and they remain with you for a lifetime. So that aspect, I think, is kind of, you miss that aspect because you miss those people. You miss what you used to banter about and what you used to talk about, and generally chit chat and have fun. And so you do tend to miss that. There is no doubt about that. But that having been said, being ashore now, and being off uniform now, it has its own freedoms. It has its own anonymity. It has its own, you get time to spend with your family. So, you can focus on other aspects of life now. So it is, I think, I won't compare one with the other. Each has its own advantages and each has its own charm. So you must make use of it while you're there and enjoy it to the most. So while I was in the Navy, we as a couple also, my wife and I, we thoroughly enjoyed our time there. And when we realized that we had kind of outlived our life and kind of in the Navy. So we decided to step out. So then that's when we came in here, and I think we are enjoying ourselves here as well. And I think that's the way to live life. You make the most of what you can wherever you are.
Right. So the idea of fear and coming back to this freedom part, you have mentioned ma'am's scenario. So I think maybe next time we'll have both of you and we'll
Absolutely.
chat with them.
It'll be a
So
pleasure.
it will be better.
It'll be a pleasure.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time. And it was a really interesting and very profound conversation. We learned a lot of things, especially about handloom and the work NHDC is doing under Ministry of Textile. More power to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.